Welcome back into the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by Full Press Coverage. Sap, you got to be happy today as your Los Angeles Lakers have taken a commanding 3-1 lead over the Golden State Warriors, winning a tight one, which was like really the first close game in this series, 104-101 last night. It was an interesting game, Sap, in that it was sort of back and forth, and then you felt like the Lakers were going to do what they've done kind of in the regular season, which was, I guess you can call it the Celtics thing, which is blow a game late. But they really came storming back thanks to the most unexpected player maybe on the roster, Lonnie Walker, who had a brilliant fourth quarter, 15 points in the fourth quarter, Sap, all of his points actually, and kind of saved the Lakers in that game. And now they are in a situation where unless they really, really fall apart, they'll be advancing to the Western Conference Finals.
Lonnie Walker scored 14 points, 15 points in the fourth quarter. The Golden State Warriors scored 17 in the fourth quarter. Almost outscored the entire Warriors team. The Lakers were down 7 going into the fourth quarter. Type of game they would lose during the regular season, but they're a different team right now in the postseason than they were for most of the regular season. And when you look at it, Lonnie Walker, I forgot was on the team. Like, he hadn't been contributing much during the postseason. All of a sudden, the last 2 games, he's really stepped up. And that's what you need, what the Lakers have been able to accomplish during this run. You've got Anthony Davis, who is either playing at a very high level or a mediocre level, but he's such a force that he's going to affect the game in some ways. LeBron's been very consistent in the postseason, a little bit different than he normally has been, but still he's putting up 22, 24 points, a dozen rebounds, doing what he does on both ends of the floor. And the Lakers have been able to find someone else or 2 other players to contribute, whether it be Lonnie Walker, Austin Reeves, Dennis Schroeder, or Hachimura, or D'Angelo Russell, like someone stepping up, and that's why they're in this position right now, up 3-1. It's a tough matchup for Golden State because the Lakers are so big and physical, and you see the difference in free throw attempts. The Lakers get to the free throw line. Golden State, which is so heavily reliant on three-point shooting, doesn't get to the line as much. The Lakers can get the Warriors into foul trouble, and it almost feels like a finesse football team against a power football team, and the Lakers are just imposing their will and in a really good shape right now.
Yeah, I think that game last night was highlighted to me by 2 interesting coaching moves. The start from the Warriors of Gary Payton II, I thought he did really well. He played well in his starting lineup, and Darvin Ham, to his credit as a rookie head coach, made that bold move to go with Lonnie Walker in the fourth quarter, and it won the Lakers the game. So I thought that it was an interesting chess match last night that ultimately Darvin Ham, despite having far less experience than Steve Kerr, won. So, we talk a lot about how in the playoffs, Sap, that sometimes you're going to have to make adjustments, whether it's game to game or on the fly. And I think Darvin Ham proved a lot last night with saying, hey, whatever's going on with D'Angelo Russell tonight, he was 1 of 10 from the floor, 0 of 4 from 3. It's not working. We can't play him in the fourth quarter. He just doesn't have it. We're going to go with a guy that has not been playing, but we feel like he's ready to make an impact. And he did last night. And again, he won the Lakers the game. So if I'm a Lakers fan, I'm really happy with the job that Darvin Ham did coaching that game last night and has done coaching this series so far.
It almost feels like Darvin Ham is this year's version of Ime Udoka from last year. A longtime assistant who coached under really good coaches, has like a championship pedigree, right? He was an assistant coach with Milwaukee when they won the championship. And then he got his chance with the Lakers, stepped into a ready-made team. Now, there were some really difficult waters this year because you had Anthony Davis hurt and LeBron hurt, and the roster was very, very flexible, in some ways good, in some ways bad. But again, this is a seasoned coach who put his time in to get ready to get his first head coaching position, and he's doing a good job with it. I know in a few moments we're going to talk about another head coach who's in his first year who's not doing such a good job and quite frankly wasn't prepared for that job, to be honest with you. But we'll talk about the Celtics in a little bit. But yeah, Darvin Ham's done a nice job. I think you got to give Rob Pelinka a lot of credit. About 3 months ago, it looked like he was going to get fired. And now you can make a case that he was the best executive at the trade deadline, right? Bringing in D'Angelo Russell, getting rid of Russell Westbrook, bringing in Hachimura, and then you just saw how that roster just all of a sudden flourished. Now, it also helped that in the final third of the season, Anthony Davis was healthy and played like an MVP. That's still the biggest reason the Lakers are in the position they are now. Yes, the other players have stepped up, but Anthony Davis has as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like we said this before the postseason and at the beginning of each series they played. If Anthony Davis plays well, they win. If he doesn't, they won't. And last night he played excellent. 10 of 16 from the floor, 15 rebounds, 3 steals, 2 assists, 23 points. That's the numbers that you need from him, and that's exactly what you got. And then if one or two other guys step up because LeBron's going to play well too, then you're going to win the game. For the Lakers, it was Austin Reeves, it was Lonnie Walker, it was Dennis Schroeder, and that was enough to beat the Warriors, despite Steph Curry having a triple-double, though he did not shoot the ball well from 3. LA on the verge of going to the Western Conference Finals, Sap.
Yeah, I mean, it's not over yet because Game 5 is going to be in San Francisco, so you can never count out the Warriors. During this run, they've only lost 2 playoff series. Now, both times they were eliminated at home. Game 7 against the Cavaliers in 2016, Game 6 against Toronto in the NBA Finals in 2019. And I think that the Lakers, who had one really good game in San Francisco, the one they won, which was Game 1, and then one poor performance in Game 2, certainly can go on the road and win. They've availed themselves pretty well on the road all year. They have veteran players, obviously, LeBron and Anthony Davis and some other players that are playing with confidence. But, Golden State's going to come out with their best effort going forward. But if Steph Curry's going to shoot 12 of 30 from the floor, 3 of 14 from 3, they're going to be in trouble at that point because they're going to need someone else to step up. And, of course, they do have Klay Thompson, who is always a clutch performer in the postseason, or for the most part has been a clutch performer. He hasn't had a great series so far. But yeah, the Lakers are in control of the series, and I think get it done as quickly as you can because you get more rest for LeBron and Anthony Davis, and you kind of regroup and get onto the Western Conference Finals against Denver Phoenix, which all of a sudden is now 2 games apiece in that series. So maybe that one strings out to 7 games. So you try to take advantage of the situation you're in. We've seen the Celtics kind of not do this against Atlanta in the first round. They're not doing it again against Philadelphia. They didn't do it last year against Miami. I mean, they just have a tendency of making things more difficult on themselves. But the Lakers have an opportunity to maybe wrap this thing up tomorrow night and get ready for the Western Conference Final. But I expect Golden State to come out big, put forth a big effort, and the Lakers are going to have to be able to match that.
Really quick, Sap, I would just touch on the other game last night because this is the series that has the least amount of juice of all these series, in that Miami's taken a 3-1 lead over the Knicks. Jimmy Butler continues to play outstanding basketball. Just the Knicks, they're getting a lot out of Jalen Brunson, who's been terrific throughout the playoffs and had a great regular season. They're just not getting enough from the rest of their team. Their bench is not providing really anything for them. Barrett's a little bit inconsistent. Randall's clearly hurt, and Miami has been here before and New York hasn't, and it showed in this series right now in that it looked pretty even on paper, Sap, going into at the beginning of the series, but Miami has just taken kind of a command over what is looking like will be a quick series.
Yeah, Jalen Brunson's been outstanding for the Knicks. Julius Randle, again, as you said, battling those injuries, but he hasn't been a great playoff performer. He wasn't 2 years ago when they lost to the Hawks in 5 games. In the series over Cleveland, he was good, not great. It was Brunson again who kind of led them to victory over the Cavaliers. But I think the biggest factor in this series, obviously Jimmy Butler being the best player on the floor, has also been Bam Adebayo, who's playing like he did in the bubble 3 years ago. He's been Miami's second best player, and he's been, you can make a case, the 3rd best player in this series behind Jimmy Butler and Jalen Brunson. And that may be enough for the Heat to move on. And again, we both think that Eric Spoelstra is the best coach in the business. Not that Tom Thibodeau's not a great coach, but to me, Spoelstra always has an advantage, and you can make those little tweaks in between games or within a game that puts you over the top. And that's why Miami's a team no one ever wants to play. I know a noted columnist from Boston by the name of Chris Gasper said that the Miami Heat are like the Baltimore Ravens of basketball. And I kind of get it. The Ravens are always a team that maybe doesn't have as much talent as other football teams, but they're a pain in the butt. They're well coached. They're, got a strong mentality, good culture. That's the way the Miami Heat play basketball. And that's why really over the last 4 years, they've accomplished a lot despite not necessarily having the most talented roster. So give that edge to Miami. I think the Knicks will come up strong in Game 5. You never want to lose on your home court, but right now it's a bad matchup for the Knicks. They're not healthy, and Miami just is taking care of business.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's a series that lacks star power, despite it being the New York Knicks, and Miami is, a marquee franchise too. It hasn't been particularly interesting compared to the other series. And then I guess to Sap, that will bring us to the two games tonight. We'll start with the Boston Celtics, who stormed back in game 4 in Philadelphia, only to lose in overtime. And the bulk of the criticism has been on head coach Joe Mazzulla, who declined to call a timeout at the end of the fourth quarter as the Celtics had a chance to win the game, and then declined to call a timeout at the end of overtime as the Celtics had a chance to win the game. Do you feel like the criticism of Mazzulla, or maybe him being the primary candidate of the criticism, is fair or not?
Yeah, it's fair. I mean, we've talked about it all year. He doesn't like to use his timeouts. So he went home with 2 timeouts in his pocket. Do you carry those over into game 5 if he needs them? No, they're gone. The strange thing is, too, is each situation's different. You're tied at the end of regulation. Okay, I can see you play it out. Now you're down 1 in overtime. You need to kind of rally the troops, get them on the bench, and explain the situation, because it becomes situational basketball. The guys on TNT, Shaq, Chuck, Kenny, and Ernie, were talking about, did the Celtics not know what the score was at that time? Did they think it was a tie score, not down
Right.
1? Kind of the reverse of what J.R. Smith thought was the situation in the finals 5 years ago when he got the offensive rebound and tried to run out the clock in a tie game. So that's something that you have to question. The other thing, too, in that situation is you want to get a shot off around 5 seconds remaining. You're down 1. If you make it, fine, you go play defense. If you miss it, you can get an offensive rebound for a putback. You win the game there. Or if the Philadelphia 76ers get the defensive rebound, you foul and you lengthen the game, right? You give yourself another opportunity. And Chris Forsberg of NBC Sports Boston did a deep dive into Mazzulla using timeouts and not using timeouts. You look at situations where it's been the final 30 seconds in the fourth quarter or overtime, and you're trailing by 3 points or less, right? This is winning time, obviously. When Mazzulla uses a timeout, the Celtics are averaging 1.3 points per possession coming out of a timeout. That's really good. When he doesn't use a timeout, they average 0.7 points per possession, essentially half of what they do after a timeout. If I explain that to you or my neighbor who maybe doesn't even follow basketball, they would say, call a timeout. You score
Right.
1.3 points per possession. Following a timeout, 0.7 points per possession. Not using a timeout, use a timeout. It seems pretty simple. He didn't, and now this series is 2 games apiece.
I've always looked at Sap. My philosophy with calling timeouts is you're essentially buying what should either be 2 points, or you're buying a really good quality open look. You need to look at it that way. And then you have the additional stuff, like you said, Sap. It was an intense game. It was in overtime. Your players are tired, and you just gave up the only shot you were supposed to not give up, which was a 3 to James Harden. I mean, I was screaming at my TV before that possession. No threes, no threes. The only thing that could hurt you was a 3. They
Right.
decided to double down in the paint and then kick out James Harden 3, and the Sixers win. So besides that being idiotic, which it was, you just got punched in the face. Like you said, Seth, you need to rally the troops a little bit. You need to say, okay, calm down. We've been in these situations before. Here's what we're going to do. Draw something up. I just don't understand any good reason not to do that. So it's frustrating on multiple levels, and the level that, he needed to calm the team down, the level that they didn't come up with any sort of quality shot. So both of those things could have been addressed in the timeout, Sap. It's just frustrating. This series, the Celtics had the opportunity to win all 4 games in the series. The series could be over with had they taken game 1 seriously and had they not made fatal mistakes in game 4. But here they are now tied 2-2, and it's, game 5 oftentimes is a must-win game, Sap, and that's what they're looking at tonight, because you don't want to go into Philadelphia with the potential of being eliminated.
Yeah, back to your whole timeout thing, Jet, is every situation is different. If it comes off of a miss and you're tied, okay, then you go into your set, right? Because you've got offensive players on the court. I get that, but you also have some sort of momentum there, and the defense doesn't set up easily. If it comes off a make, the momentum is on the other team's side, and it's easier to set up your defense following a make than a miss. I mean, we can all agree on that. So that wasn't an option on Sunday because, again, twice James Harden hit huge shots, right? Once to tie you in regulation, another time to put you ahead in overtime. So all the momentum is there with the Philadelphia 76ers. And again, you got Marcus Smart taking two big shots. Now, he hit the second one. Unfortunately, came after the buzzer. And this is another problem with the Celtics, Jet, that if you look at late and close game situations, which is defined with less than 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter and overtime, and you're up or down 5 or fewer points, the last two postseasons, 34 games, Marcus Smart is 4 of 18 in those situations. He's attempted more of those shots in those situations than Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown combined. They've only taken 17 of those shots. This ain't baseball where you're at the mercy of what your batting order is. In late game situations like that, why is Marcus Smart taking more shots than Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown combined when you have an opportunity to draw something up for your two best players? Again, this goes back to coaching. And again, this is last year, too, with Ime Udoka. Remember, Marcus Smart nearly shot them out of the Eastern Conference Finals when they had a 13-point lead, and he insisted on just jacking up shots. And I know you love Marcus Smart, and I think he's had some really good games in this postseason. But at times, he inserts himself into being the equal of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown's, and he ain't. So that's another problem I see with the Celtics is you got to know who your guys are to take these big shots. I'm not saying he should never take a big shot. You know, John Paxson won a series for the Chicago Bulls back in 1993 with a game-winning shot in Game 6 of the NBA Finals. It didn't always have to be Michael Jordan. But, you know, you want to lean more towards those great players than the role players. It's another issue with the Boston Celtics that I see. Again, 4 for 18. That's 22%. And he's jacking up threes. He's your worst three-point shooter. What are you doing?
Yeah, absolutely, Sep. You know, I agree. And another point that I think has been sort of not talked about at all as we kind of wrap up talking about this series right now is the Celtics free throw shooting ended up costing them 16 of 22 from the line. Sap, they lose the game by 1 point. You got to be. They're a really good free throw shooting team statistically, but you can't leave points on the board in playoff games, Sep. That's too many points, too many missed free throws. 72% from the line. You need to be better than that. Especially, look, it ended up costing you the game, and there's so many plays, Sep, that hopefully the Celtics win this series. They're clearly the better team, but there are so many plays and moments that you could say, wow, the Celtics could have just put this away here or there or at another time, and they just don't do it. They make everything more difficult on themselves, and now they're in a 2-2 series. And again, like I said, it's a Game 5. They're at home. It's sort of a must-win. You cannot go to Philadelphia with a chance to be eliminated.
No, again, back to poor situational basketball. Jet, this year the Celtics are 4-8 in overtime. This should be a team that excels in overtime, right? Because they're young, athletic, and they're deep, and they've played together for a while. 4-8 in overtime in the regular season and postseason combined. When you have two stud players who are right in their prime, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, you've got that deep bench: Grant Williams, Rob Williams, and Malcolm Brogdon. Heck, he's the sixth man of the year. So in overtime situations, you should go ready for the tap off, and say, we're in control here. We're the better team. 4-8. That's not good enough.
No, not at all. And this team has been terrible down in the end of games all season long. It's haunted them a couple times now in the postseason, and they need to figure that out. Whether they have the ability to, I'm not sure. I don't think they have the right coach, and he's rightfully taken a lot of flack. And but I think that regardless of what happens in this series, they're going to stick with him. I don't believe that's the right call, but I think they've sort of backed themselves into a corner. But again, we can talk more about the Celtics once the series becomes a little bit more clear. Big game tonight, and that will take us to Sap, the last series that we have not talked about, which is also tonight. Their Game 5, Phoenix and Denver. Denver started out 2-0, and then Chris Paul went down with an injury. And you thought, okay, Denver's going to wrap this thing up quickly. Phoenix said not so fast. And behind the brilliant play of Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant's been very good too, has now tied this thing up at 2 games apiece. They were even able to overcome a massive game 4 from Nikola Jokic, 50-plus points in that one. And now the pressure is back on Denver to take care of business as they're at home for Game 5.
Nikola Jokic has been great in the postseason, as has Jimmy Butler. Devin Booker's been the best player this postseason. He's averaging 37 points, 7.5 assists. He's running point the last few games with Chris Paul being out. You just look at his efficiency, shooting 62% from the floor, 51% from three. he's just fantastic.
I
And
didn't think, Sep, that he had this level in him. So, I think he's taken his game to another level that I didn't think he
mhm,
had. So, credit to him.
he plays with so much force, pace, and again, he's fine shooting mid-range jumpers, which it seems like Jason Tatum is not fine at, right? Like you look at these two players; they're only a year apart. They're two of the top players in the league without question. Heck, last year they were both first-team All NBA. They're sensational. But Jason Tatum just gets stuck taking three after three after three, and he's a 34% three-point shooter. He's not that great at it. Booker's a better three-point shooter, but he doesn't take as many threes. He realizes the importance of the mid range or taking it to the basket. And, he just seems to get better with every series. Now, he's playing with Kevin Durant, who's the easiest superstar, maybe in league history, to play along with. These guys played 8 games together in the regular season. They're meshing beautifully here in the postseason. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have been together for 6 years, and there's times that I watch the Celtics and say, have these guys ever played together? It doesn't seem like it works, right? Because how many times have we seen with the Celtics where it's Jaylen Brown gets off to a great start, Jason Tatum isn't ready to play? I mean, did Jason
Right. It's
Tatum
like
think
just
that
play
game
well at the
four?
same time. Why can't you
Right.
just play well at the
Can,
same time?
right. Can you have a first quarter where Tatum gets 10 and Brown gets 8 and they're
I
both into
know.
it? Like, Jaylen Brown scored 12 points in the first 5 minutes of game four, and then he kind of was a no-show after that. And oftentimes the Celtics don't give him the basketball. It's like they forget that this guy's a great player. Jason Tatum was horrible in the first half. He was great in the second half. Did Jason Tatum think that game four started at 5, not 3:30? Like, it's just he didn't show up in the first half. Whereas Booker is more consistent. And again, playing with Kevin Durant makes life a lot easier because he pulls a lot of the defense towards him, and that opens up things for Devin Booker, who said he's never seen so many open shots. And this is with Chris Paul on the bench. And at times, I think they play better together without Chris Paul. As great as Chris Paul is, Paul plays at a slower pace. I mean, he's 38 years old nearly, whereas Booker and Durant, I think, get into their offensive sets a little quicker without Chris Paul. But I'm kind of starting to lean towards Phoenix because, I mean, how much better can Jokic play? Murray's been really good. And now Booker seems to be playing at some other level. I mean, this could be one of those series where you lose the first two on the road and then you come back and storm back and win the series. It's been kind of a quiet series because we're all concentrating on Lakers, Golden State, Boston, Philly. This series has been very entertaining and intriguing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we both, if I'm recalling correctly, Seth, took Phoenix in
Mm-hmm.
this series at the beginning. I think we were a little bit worried about our pick after the first 2 games, but to Phoenix's credit, they've used that star power to win the next two. And I think that, Denver is going to show a lot in this game, what they're actually made of. Are they able to counterpunch? And play with that chip on their shoulder that we sort of saw in their easy first round series and then in those first 2 games, or are they gonna fall apart and say, oh man, this is happening to us again, we're gonna have a letdown in the postseason? So I think you're gonna find out a lot about them. We already know what Nikola Jokic is. We don't have to worry about him. It's those guys that are the supporting players. Jamal Murray has been up and down. He was really good last game, not so good in other games this season, this postseason, I should say. Michael Porter Jr., the same, 11 points, 10 rebounds. Like, that's solid, but not enough from him. You need to get more scoring out of him. Their bench isn't giving them all that much. God, how Jeff Green continues to play at, meaningful minutes for teams that are trying to win championships at this point in his career is beyond me. He's like he's like a cockroach. I mean, I'm not saying that in an offensive way. He just keeps going no matter what gets thrown at him. Open heart surgery, bounced around from team to team. The man just keeps finding ways to contribute on playoff teams. And so I think that what we were talking about at the beginning of this series, Sap, is that Denver's depth is really going to have to outplay the lack of depth on the Suns. Well, the Suns last game beat them on depth and have played them more or less to a draw. And that's not going to work. If you're Denver, you cannot lose those bench minutes to the 70s. I keep saying the 76ers, to the Suns. I mean, Landry Shamet, 19 points, outscored the entire Denver bench by 8 points. That's not going to fly for Denver. You need to beat them in those bench minutes.
And it also helped Phoenix that there was some breaks between games. Like the Lakers and Golden State are playing every other day. The Celtics and Sixers are playing every other day, whereas the Miami Knicks series and the Denver Phoenix series had these gaps, right? So it gave a team like Phoenix that's not very deep and so reliant on Kevin Durant and Devin Booker a chance to kind of regroup, get some rest, and those guys were ready to fly in games 3 and 4. But yeah, the thing about Jokic is, I mean, man, it seems like he's responded to not winning the MVP this year, finishing second to Joel Embiid by saying, "Hey, that was my award, and I still want to prove that I deserved the 2 previous MVPs, and maybe I deserved it again this year." He's just been sensational. The guy is just an incredible player and such a unique player. He's a guy who doesn't really get off the floor much, if any, and still puts up all those points like he did, and still gives you, 13 to 15 rebounds and double-digit assists, and just makes his teammates better. But
just crazy efficient
series
too. Just
I
mean,
it's
20
nuts.
of 30.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he'll shoot over 60% from the floor. He'll be in the high 40s from 3. I mean, the guy's just an incredible player.
Yeah. So I mean, this has turned into a really fascinating series, and again, like Boston, Philadelphia, it could very well hinge on this game 5 tonight. Whoever wins it is certainly in the driver's seat. And Denver should feel good that they're back at home. Home game is won every game in this series. But Phoenix definitely has the momentum going into this game. So I'm really excited for both games tonight. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't really nervous about the Celtics game as a Celtics fan. I'm lying awake at night. I'm having bad dreams when I fall asleep. Sap, it's a mess.
Try
I wish I was
milk.
in your situation.
Warm milk before bed.
Well, I'm lactose, Sap.
That
I don't
doesn't
know
help.
that.
Then
That's not going to help me.
Then don't do that.
But I wish I was in your situation with my team up 3-1. We should have been. Celtics should have been, but they are not. So that brings us to our last piece of news today, Sap, and it's actually not NBA news. It could be future NBA news, as LeBron James' son, Bronny James, has chosen where he's going to go to college, and he's dead to me now because I was hoping he was going to go to Oregon. It was in his final 3. He decided not to, and he goes to instead my sister's alma mater, University of Southern California, USC. He's going to stay local right where he is, going to get to see his dad all the time, his mom all the time, his brother all the time. And I'm sure we'll see LeBron watching a lot of Trojans games. And the 1 year that LeBron is in Southern California will be a fascinating one with pretty much, I would assume, every USC game going to be on national TV, Sap.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was kind of surprised that this happened. You thought if he'd stayed close to home, that maybe it would be UCLA. Instead, it's USC. I thought Oregon was the obvious choice because of the tie-in with Nike. But, Bronny, I think, has about $7.6 million in NIL funds. So, he's kind of building his own brand as a young man. And, maybe he just wanted to be close to home. And it's important for LeBron to see his son grow. And like you said, the family can go watch him. His friends can go watch him. And then he can go from there. And, we both feel that he's going to play 1 year. If he's good enough, he's going to jump into the NBA. And, LeBron's dream is to play with his son. I don't know if Bronny's dream is to play with his dad.
Yeah, no one's asked him.
No one's asked him about that. You just assume that that's going to be the case. That would be incredible pressure. I mean, you look at Ken Griffey and Ken Griffey Jr. when they played together. The difference there was the younger player was the stud. Ken Griffey Jr., one of the 3 best players I've ever seen play baseball, and his dad was essentially at that point a pinch hitter, kind of a role guy who had a really nice career, but it was more about, well, dad's going to join this young superstar in Ken Griffey Jr. Well, this is going to be the other way around. It's going to be this player coming out of college who may be, a late first-round pick. We don't even know how good Bronny is. I think
do you have a comp to that, Sap? A younger player who was the lesser player playing with their dad?
No, I mean, Barry Bonds never played with his dad, Bobby, and Bobby was really good. He wasn't Barry, but Bobby was,
the
sensational.
Hulls?
Yeah, that could be. Yeah.
I'm not a hockey guy, Saps.
The House.
Sorry.
Gordie Howe was like 53 playing with his sons. So, yeah, I mean, he was just a freak unto himself. I mean, he was, and still a physical force at that age. So, yeah, I think that makes the most sense. Gordie Howe playing with his sons with the Hartford Whalers back in like 1980 was probably the one comp. I mean, if Brady had a kid, earlier in his life, but that again, you have to obviously produce a player that's good enough to play in the league.
Yeah,
Like
it's not
Bronny
hard.
is,
You have
I
to
think,
have a
it's
superior sperm and then a
right, yeah,
superior egg, and then you also have to have crazy longevity.
right. And all that has to work. I mean, this isn't like someone bringing in someone to a law firm, although you still have to kind of pass the bar to be a lawyer, or go to medical school to be a doctor. So it's not that easy even in that realm. But I think that this is going to be interesting to see. But Bronny rated as the 5th best point guard in his class. So what
Yeah,
does
I
that
think
mean?
he's a top 15, 16 recruit overall.
Yeah, so
So he's
that
a high
sounds like a
recruit.
late first round pick. I mean, I think that the one place I think that would make a lot of sense is Cleveland if LeBron wants to go back there, because they do have their first round pick that year in 2024. And it would be kind of cool to end things in Cleveland where it all started.
They might be too
The
good.
Lakers, well, yeah, that's the other thing. It would be a late first round pick, but man, they could use a small forward, couldn't they? I mean, to me, I joked about it during the season. LeBron going to Cleveland would put them over the top. You got the backcourt, you got the
Yeah.
two big guys. They just don't have a wing. I mean, put LeBron on that team, I think you got a certain championship team. But we'll have to see. I hope that they just let him grow. As a young man, let him enjoy the college experience. And I think LeBron's really proud that this is the first member of his family that's attending college, and he's really proud of that. And just kind of let him go on campus and grow. But I think Bronny has lived his entire life knowing what this is all about. I mean, from the moment he came on planet Earth,
Right.
we knew who he was. He was LeBron James' son. That can't be easy. I mean, it opens a lot of doors and it sets you up financially for the rest of your life. But living up to that is not easy to do.
No,
But
we've talked about it before. I think even when we were at the Herald, that the
yeah,
fact that he shares his father's name.
and
That's
LeBron kind of
stuff.
said he kind of regrets doing that. Like I think, did Michael Jordan name one of his sons after him? But the only difference there, Jed, is Michael's kind of a common name. Like there's Michael B. Jordan,
Right.
the actor. LeBron, the only two LeBrons I know were
It's
LeBron James and LeBron James Jr. There's
Jordan's sons are Marcus and
I know it's
Jeffrey.
Marcus and Jeffrey. Okay, right, because his favorite player, I'm the same age as Michael Jordan. His favorite player when he was in high school, early college, the same as mine, Marcus Johnson. But he spells it different, Marcus for his son. Marcus Johnson was Marquess.
Right.
And Jeffrey, yeah. And I think Michael's middle name is Jeffrey.
It is.
And
Yeah.
then, yeah, now remember, kind of interesting, Everybody Loves Raymond. The really,
Yeah, sure.
I love that sitcom. Ray Romano's twins in that show were named Michael and Jeffrey.
There you go.
Maybe it was named after Michael Jordan because he was a sports writer in the
He
show.
was
Whatever.
a sports writer in the show.
Yeah,
Right.
maybe I'm digging too deep here. But yeah, so again, not easy for the young guy, but he seems pretty well adjusted. Like he seems like a really good kid, doesn't he? I mean, just from everything you hear, his teammates love him. He seems like he blends in well, and I think. And LeBron was that way in high school. Like you remember when LeBron was in high school, obviously he was, kind of like this freak of nature. I mean, I still think LeBron and Tiger Woods are the two athletes in my lifetime that were under the most pressure, given so many expectations for those two guys, and they both, reached them. LeBron was great with his teammates. Like it seemed like he really fit in, and he's always kind of been that kind of guy. So let's hope he just grows as a player, and then we'll just see what happens. Maybe he wants to spend 2 years at USC. Who knows?
I mean, obviously, going to the NBA for the money is not an issue for him. So, he can he can pursue his education if he wants, or pursue being a college kid for a while if he wants. That's the only reason I mean, again, selfishly, I wanted to go to Oregon because I thought it would be interesting, and that's my alma mater, as everybody who ever listens to a show knows. I also feel like it would have given maybe a little bit more independence and a chance to grow. Like, okay, maybe I'm sure he'll live on campus at USC, but his dad probably lives in like Beverly Hills or something. So it's like a 15, 20-minute car ride. He's not really by himself all that much. So I don't know. Again, I think that he'll be fine. Like you said, he's a well-adjusted kid. It seems like I don't think he's going to get in trouble. He's got really good parents. I just feel like he's had no chance in his life to be truly independent at this point.
Right.
And staying, within 20 minutes of your parents doesn't fully give you that ability, but Hey, listen, some people just want to be around their family and parents. I'm not going to
Yeah.
begrudge them that. That's absolutely fine.
Go home for
So
meals and do your laundry like every college kid,
exactly.
right?
I'm sure that it will work out fine. USC is built a much better basketball program than they used to have.
Mhm.
There'll be a lot of pressure on them to be good this year, but it's not Kentucky or Duke where there's going to be national championship pressure. He's not going to be expected to deliver anything outrageous to USC, in terms of what they accomplish by the end of the season.
Yeah, it's not like LeBron probably would have went to Ohio State if he attended
Right.
college for
That's
one
what he
year, and they
says. Yeah.
probably would have won the national championship. I think Kobe was going to go to Duke,
Yeah.
which obviously had this massive program anyway. And Ohio State had a really good basketball program as well, but those guys impacted their teams immediately, whereas Bronny's going to try to grow as a player. But it's going to be interesting to watch how he grows as a player and as a student and as a young man, and where it leads us. Because LeBron can still play. I mean, he's 38. He
Oh,
still
yeah. Oh,
looks
my goodness.
darn
Yes.
good. I mean, there was some defensive plays he made the other night against Golden State last night and in Game 3. He looked like Sauce Gardner out there. I mean, he was like covering people like a cornerback,
Oh,
making
no.
them ground. He could still play. There's
He
no
could still
question
go.
about it.
He's
Yeah,
still a top 10 player
yeah, without
for
question.
no doubt for me.
And he's not scoring as much, but we see what he does on the defensive end, and that as I've said, that trickles down to the rest of the roster. So, LeBron might get tired of the sport before he's not a great player anymore. But I think he's still got at least 2 years left, and maybe that means that Bronny joins the league earlier. Who knows? But that's going to be a fascinating story to watch.
Yeah, they're going to end their career on the Utah Jazz. That'll be really fun
No.
for everybody.
Yeah, I'm sure he'd love to play for Danny Ainge. I think that would be the place he definitely wants to go.
Oh, but that's going to do it for us here at the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap. Thanks to Full Press Coverage as always. Make sure you check out their website for all sorts of great shows, articles, what have you, and make sure you find our podcast wherever podcasts are found. Just type in the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap. Follow us on social media at JohnSap25, at Jet Stryer. We'll be back later in the week with a new show talking about what's going on in the rest of the playoffs, any other news that we get. Some all NBA will be announced on Thursday, I think, Sap. So we'll have that to talk about. That should have some big ramifications going forward. So plenty to discuss. And make sure you're, saying your prayers, wearing your lucky rabbit's foots, whatever, for the Celtics game tonight, Sap. So we need all the good vibes possible. And that's going to do it. Thanks for listening, everybody. We will talk to you later. See ya.